Good afternoon, everybody. My name is AJ Kuftic. I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today, I have Scott Ringle, who's another one of our Principal Technologists. Today, we're going to talk about Cloud Simplified. As a quick housekeeping note, please enter all those questions down about here into the Q&A panel. That helps us keep track of the questions. We'll answer those after the session. And if you ask a question or enter win a prize, that prize today is a $100 Best Buy gift card. So please be sure to get those questions in. And also, this is all being recorded. So if you have to step away, you want to show this to someone else, you can go to our website, go.expedient.com/webinar replays, youtube.com/expedient, instagram.com/_expedient, and linkedin.com/expedient. Hi, everybody on LinkedIn Live. I hope you guys are having a great day today. Expedient, we've evolved over the last 20 years. And that's because we've been through a lot of different changes in our industry. We started in co-location, power, ping, and pipe about 20 years ago. Today, we have 12 data centers in 8 cities. We then moved into virtual co-location to keep up with changes from as customers moved from physical to virtual. We wanted to provide virtual hosting to make sure that they were able to get those as a service from us as well in 2007. In 2015, we released push button DR when we noticed that disaster recovery solutions just weren't cutting it. Now we have the fastest failover in the industry with full network failover. In 2018, we released the Expedient Enterprise Cloud. That is an evolution of our virtual hosting to provide a full cloud operating model for your VMware workloads. And in 2020, we released our cloud native platform to power app modernization. And in 2021, we're focused on multi-cloud. And the problem with multi-cloud is that with multiple clouds comes multiple problems. And you may have on-premises workloads, you may have enterprise cloud workloads, you may have hyperscale cloud workloads. And based on a poll that we actually ran at the start of our whole MultiCloud Madness, we found that the majority of people responding to the poll and a majority of people based on our research are using more than one cloud today. Maybe they have some workloads in AWS, maybe they have some things in Azure, maybe they have a mix of on-prem and Azure, or they have a mix of these workloads. And trying to manage all of those together is really difficult, right? You have 5 different user interfaces that you can log into, whether that's your vSphere on-prem, vCloud Director in an enterprise cloud. You have the various portals of AWS, Azure, and GCP. They all have different APIs. They're all very different from each other. And that leads to a lot of management challenges and time spent just dealing with these individual clouds. And you might not have even gone out there with a full strategy. Maybe one of your developer teams picked up AWS along the way, or maybe one of your, when you moved into Office 365, you had to take on Azure as part of doing Azure AD for all the authentication, right? There's a number of these different things that you might have just picked up along the way, and you didn't mean to do it on purpose. And because of that, you have financials all over the place. You have 5 different bills coming from all of these different places. And there's even different financial models. Your on-prem is driven almost entirely by CapEx. You buy hardware, you run that hardware for a few years, you replace that hardware. That's a pretty straightforward forecasting. And you just spitball your growth to say, we'll probably grow, what, 20% year over year, something like that. And that's the headroom that you build into your platform. So you're not paying for what you're using, you're paying for what you might use 3 years from now. And that can be really, really costly. On the flip side, you have the OpEx model of all the clouds, where you have to say how much and understand how much you're using per month. And IT people, hi, heart to heart here, we're bad at that. We're very bad at that. And forecasting is an incredibly hard thing to do, especially when you've never had to do it before. And you have to learn on the fly, and you will make very expensive mistakes along the way. And finally, trying to put together all the policies to make this consistent so that you're in compliance and that everything is secure can be really, really hard because none of them are the same. They have different syntaxes, different best practices, different capabilities that don't exactly line up to one consistent platform. And that's not even diving into things like management, security, cost management, data management, and networking. This is a massive problem when you have no strategy and you just kind of stumbled into this. And Scott, this is what we've seen from a lot of our customers too.
Absolutely. You're right, AJ. And coming over from the enterprise sales team here at Expedient, now on the principal technology team, this is some real world data that we have out there. We're seeing this across almost all of our clients nationwide. Having a single pane of glass to try and manage these complex consoles that not only, you know, from just a pure management perspective, as you said, management, security, cost management, data management, networking, all these things get more and more complex as you expand that across multiple clouds. Being able to consolidate that into a single pane of glass and then manage that, not only from a cost perspective, from an optimization perspective, is what clients are all screaming for. It's just for lack of a better term, it's a nightmare for them to manage. And we're here to help with that.
Yep. And that's our Cloud Simplified pillar. And you may have heard the other two pillars, Cloud Smarter and Cloud Safer. This is Cloud Simplified. This is how we make a single foundation for all clouds to help streamline those operations, because we want to make this easier. We want to provide a single way to manage all of this and make it easier, because really there's three questions that we ask. The first is, where is your money going? And I think a lot of the time it's, that unknown spend in your environment. Again, this is not uncommon to have. Maybe I have a development team and Scott has a development team. We work for the same company, but we have our own different teams and we have our own different ideas on how we want to do things. And maybe we did these at completely separate times, but then we each have our own individual spend. We went out to AWS at different times, and that leads to multiple bills and organizations. And you don't know your true spend until all of it rolls up at the top of accounting. And you can ask Mary in accounting, you can say, Mary, how are you doing today? Can I have a list of all of the Amazon spend that we had for the last month? And you may find out that AJ spent $1,000 and Scott spent $1,000, but there's three more teams that spent $6,000 each. And you find out, whoa, I'm sorry, I thought I spent $2,000. You mean to tell me I spent $20,000? How did that work? This is what happens. You have unknown spend in your organization because you have multiple organizations all spending their money in at the same time.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that a lot of times developers will deploy things that are not exactly optimal. They'll deploy a machine because they want all of this additional horsepower, but they only use half of it or maybe even a quarter of it. And they need to optimize that back down. And they can do that, but they don't know that they need to because they don't have any real monitoring on it. Everything's fine, so no one does anything about it. Being able to right size and optimize those costs can be incredibly powerful. And Scott, I think we have a tool to fix that, right?
We certainly do. We got a great tool to fix that. And, you know, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Keep going.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring to the table here is that what I see out there on a day-to-day basis, it's all the things you just brought up, but it's a little bit deeper when it comes to DevOps. You have development and operations. So you have infrastructure on one side and development on the other. Development people are rather beg for permission than ask beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. They want to get their projects done. They go out and do rogue IT, shadow IT. They go out there, and that's where you have multiple budgets happening all the time. And they'll actually defend that. They're not going to say that out loud to their boss, but they're actually going to do it anyway. And this is where this stuff comes from. So we're here to kind of bridge that gap between operations and development and get true DevOps on the same page. The single pane of glass management console we're talking about helps keep those guardrails on there, as you're going to talk about in a second here, AJ, not to steal your thunder, but it's actually a big common denominator problem between operations and development. DevOps drives 90% of IT modernization into the cloud. Well, we all know why that is. They want those CI/CD capabilities. They want that ability to take those new applications out to market very quickly, but getting that infrastructure budget done or getting those security compliances in place takes a lot of time. Getting permission set up, all the things that go into setting up operations is difficult and time consuming. So with that in mind, this console is kind of a breath of fresh air for both sides of the equation to help bridge that gap. Go ahead, AJ.
Right. And that's our Expedient Cost Control. This is our platform that we've developed and helped to build to be able to have a true cost overview. We want to connect to AWS and Azure, GCP, ourselves, maybe even on-prem things, to have all of our cloud spend together. And a lot of that then brings to light, hey, we're spending a lot with AWS. We're spending not a ton with Google. What are we using Google for? Can we eliminate that? Does that save us time? Does that save us spend? But also to get an idea of where our dollars are going. Because when you have all of your dollars and they're going to the right places, this gives you new capabilities. The other thing you can do is that your C-suite, your directors, they want to know this data, but they don't want to log in. They don't want to click around things. They just want a report that tells them where their money is going. So you can schedule them reports and send those to them directly. So every week they get the cloud spend report, or every month they get the cloud spend report. And that gives them more detail than just here's what the bill from Amazon says. This helps them understand where that dollar is really going. And you can tie it to things like tenants and groups and dev and test and prod to be able to say where everything is going. I can also analyze costs in real time. I can say that, hey, my AWS spend is higher this week than it was last week. Why? Oh, it's because we were running a sale. We spun up a bunch of extra instances over the weekend. The sale's done. So we can go ahead and close out those instances. And if, Scott's team spent, $5,000 last month instead of the 1,000 they normally do, I can start to institute budgets and approvals on top of that to make sure that he doesn't do that again, because we want to make sure that we're optimizing and protecting our costs. Scott would never do such a thing.
No.
And that's something that we could be capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where is our time going? We know where our money's going, but where's our time going? And a lot of this comes back to the multiple panes of glass, right? I have my AWS portal, Azure portal, GCP portal, vSphere, VCD, all of these things spread out across all of these panes of glass. And so when I'm building each one of those, as Scott just mentioned, every time I build a pane of glass, every time I take on a new provider, I have to stand up authentication and security and logging and roles and all of this other stuff that just takes time every single time we take on a provider. And the problem with that is that makes it very hard to scale. You don't get to just immediately roll into a new cloud and start taking advantage of it. There's a bunch of stuff that you have to do up front to even get it to the point of being able to make that work. And that leads to unoptimized sizing, because people just want to go out there and get out there as quickly as they can. And they don't notice the differences between an AWS and an Azure and a GCP and an Expedient. And so if I see something like this, T2 large instance, I know what that is in AWS, but there is no T2 large in GCP. They have different instance types. And so being able to line up those instances and know what they all are can be mind-bendingly hard, because there's hundreds of instance types on both clouds. Okay. So that we can, by building out and optimizing that sizing, understanding what is the optimal sizing per cloud can be really, really hard. And Scott, we see a lot of companies spending a lot of time just trying to make this work correctly.
We absolutely do. I mean, in general, just the console management across multiple hyperscales or enterprise cloud, doesn't matter, any of the clouds. When you're managing multiple consoles at the same time, it's just inefficient. I've talked to endless clients in the enterprise and other areas that they complain about the lack of visibility on a cross-cloud platform, the amount of time spent on just setting up provisioning. Things are different in one cloud versus another. That single pane of glass capability that we have using tools like Ansible and Terraform, and we'll get into that in a second, I know, to help orchestrate consistent policies across multiple clouds and have that be synonymous and still be within compliance. And it just eliminates so much headache across the board, saving time, money, keeping people on track and accountable as well. Again, I'm not going to get into security and compliance stuff right now, but it's a big piece. Go ahead, Adam, let me see the thunder again.
Right. And that's where our continuous cloud optimization comes in. So we can help optimize costs at each step of the way and do it all through one console. If you're familiar with any of the cloud calculators, you know that they're on 3 different sites, and trying to bring all of that information together involves massive Excel spreadsheets, and it's not very useful. With our tool, we can optimize costs during deployment. I can pick an instance and say, this is how big this instance is going to be, and this is what it costs on AWS versus Azure versus Expedient versus Google. And I see it in one easy to read pane. That makes it incredibly easy for me to make the right financial choices up front. The financial choice is not the only choice, right? You may need to expand something that you already have in Azure, or you're landing something in AWS because that's where you want that to be. But the financial choices can be made up front to optimize from the start. We can also brownfield in your existing environment. So I can collect all of those and start to right size your platform where it sits. So in this example here, I have a VM that's using too much memory, right? It's an 8 gig VM. It's using 2 gigs of memory. So I'm 4 times over provisioned. What I can do here is decrease that down to a 4 gig instance, and I'm now saving $30 a month. Doesn't seem like a lot of money, but rinse and repeat that 100 times, 200 times, 1,000 times across your environment, and you can see massive savings. And we continually monitor for those improvements. We can also do things like decrease the size of an AWS instance with the click of a button. In the actual interface, that's very hard to do. There's a number of steps and a number of opportunities for you to be a human being and make a mistake. So we can make that easier. We can make it automated and do that in a much simpler fashion. And I think, Scott, we've shown this to customers, and every single time they go crazy for it.
It does. That's the net of it, really. When people get their hands on this and actually see and test drive and are shown the capabilities and how this streamlined process, forecasting, predictability, setting thresholds, controlling budgets, all within this single pane of glass console, the ability for them to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense. I'm going to get approval for this right off the bat from my teams. I know that it's a win-win across the board. Again, bridging the gap between DevOps and between development and operations is a key play here as well. I think that I've shown this to several clients now in the last just week, and I think that I'd say 100% of them across the board are giving it a thumbs up. It's something they want to continue to start using.
Yes, and it is a fantastic platform, and we have a lot more to come with it as well. And by the way, when we talk about all these multiple consoles, how many of you are utilizing multiple consoles, and how often do you do that?
That was my question.
There's a poll that we're going to roll out here in a second. How often are you managing multiple clouds? We'll let this run for about 30 seconds here, because we want to know how often are you logging into your multiple consoles to actually work on all of these different things. So now that I know where my money's going, and I have my things optimized and right-sized and everything is where I want it to be, how do I keep it that way? And that's a big challenge that we run into, especially in heavily compliant organizations, right? We have to worry about configuration drift. Configuration drift is a big deal. And I see, by the way, most of the respondents here, there were 10, 22 respondents here, 11 say hourly or daily.
Yep.
So this is a massive way to save a ton of time, and even weekly is another 5. So that's a big, big deal in being able to provide a ton of time back to you. So I hope that if you're seeing this, that you really see the actual value here, and we can get you into a test drive, and you can actually see this platform.
Absolutely. And AJ, one thing we didn't mention also is the larger and more complex the environment is, the more time they're going to spend in each console. It's a complex, and it's an exponential scale on the complexity and time spent. The larger the environment, the more VMs, the more processes to be managed. It goes exponential very, very quickly. So the time that might be just on a small VM or small environment is X, but it's X plus 10 to the next level. It just goes up exponentially across the board. I hear it from all of our clients. Go ahead.
So when we want to keep things this way, we have to worry about configuration drift. And when you have a bunch of different organizations all doing something, they're all going to do it slightly differently. And when they do it that way, you have different processes. And those different processes may not catch everything. They may only catch certain things. They may not think about all of these different compliance things, and that can lead to non-compliance. And that's something we deeply want to avoid. And the way that we work around that is with cloud standardization. Our tool has the capability to deploy to all of these clouds. So we can do things like standardize our processes. We can have standardized Ubuntu images, Windows images, Debian instances, and those sorts of things to have a standard instance to deploy. That allows you to standardize your process so that every time a developer wants to deploy an instance, they go through this system and they have access to what has been set up as the secure platform. Because from an infrastructure view, we want to put up nice guardrails. You can go 1,000 miles an hour right down the center, but we want to make sure that you don't launch yourself off a cliff. I want my developers to go faster. I want to enable my developers, and standardizing these instances saves them a ton of time. They don't have to harden their images. They don't have to deal with all the compliance stuff. Let the infrastructure people handle that. And this is where that developer and operation side can come together. We can also do things with configuration management. I can run Terraform and Ansible playbooks through our tool to be able to go out to the internet, to these various clouds, and provide configuration management on top. So I have my hardened Ubuntu instance, and I need to open up SSH, or I need to open up ports on that for a web server. I can use Ansible or Terraform to do that upfront without having to constantly go in and manually tinker. This enables those DevOps capabilities and enables our developer side and our operation side to come together so that the infrastructure team is making sure that everything is up to code and everything is compliant, while the developers are busy and focusing on delivering new features, delivering new software, which is what our developer shops should be doing. And Scott, I think this is, end to end, a really great solution for that.
It absolutely is. And that's one of the most impactful value add propositions that this whole tool puts together. That ability to have Ansible type and Terraform type playbooks across multiple clouds. The people that are managing this stuff, you guys are on the call right now, guys and gals, know that this is one of the most time consuming parts of what you do. It is also one of the places where most of the errors happen and how you get out of compliance very quickly. It is absolutely imperative to be able to manage this in a single pane of glass using tools like Ansible and Terraform that perform those tasks at literally 5 times the speed and accuracy. So that's a really big selling point.
And here's the other thing. A lot of companies have cloud management tools, right? VMware sells them. There's a number of various different cloud management tools. The problem is, congratulations, you just signed up to manage another tool in your environment. You signed up to manage a bunch of things, patch it, deal with it, scale it. We can offer this as a service with the same management and support capabilities that you expect from any other Expedient service. And I think that's another thing that makes this super powerful. And we're here with you each step of the way. We help you upfront by helping you assess your workloads and determine the TCO of your current state and your future state, and then align IT to those business objectives and deliver those optimal cloud platforms. Where should you be landing all of these workloads? And then we help you act by helping you migrate to the cloud and also monitor that performance and make sure that everything is running at an optimal level. And I think that is a massive capability that we as Expedient can offer, doing that to our cloud, doing that to hyperscale clouds, to assist you at every step of the way.
Absolutely. AJ, can we pause for 1 second back on the assessment?
Yeah.
This is one thing that's often overlooked. The assessment is something that we're going to talk about that here, right here at this slide, but back to this slide. Can you go up one slide again? Back to where we were. The assessment part of the step in this journey, many of you, depending on where you're at in the journey, the assessment is one of the most critical pieces. I cannot tell you how many knee-jerk reactions I've seen for companies taking applications and putting them into hyperscale clouds right off the bat without really realizing what they're getting into and having to either pull back applications or get stuck in a very expensive refactoring or re-engineering state that takes not only time, but money. And then even while it's in the cloud, it's not going to operate the way it should be. So this assessment, take a step back, so slow down to speed up. This is a critical piece of the migration, a portfolio assessment, knowing what those applications look like and where they should be placed in the right cloud the first time around is such a big deal. And it's often overlooked. It's talked about, but it's glazed over very quickly. Even as we just did, we kind of glazed over a little bit. It is an imperative piece of that process. Yep. Again, time and time again, across enterprises, I've seen it at 8 out of 10 times. Anyway, go ahead, Adrian. Sorry.
And by the way, if you guys want to hear more about our assessments, you can watch our Cloud Smarter webinar, or thanks for the lead in, Scott, you can go to expedient.com/services/assessments and you can sign up for a free cloud assessment. And we can help you start to take that inventory of your environment and understand what are your workloads and how to get them to where you want to be. And you can go to expedient.com/services/multi-cloud and understand our full cloud different vision. Learn more about Cloud Smarter, Cloud Safer, and Cloud Simplified, and how we can help you end to end with your multi-cloud dreams. And with that, one more thing. We have one more webinar this month as part of MultiCloud Madness and the Drive for 5. We are bringing in Bob Evans from Cloud Wars and Gene Torres from Zerto and Mike Fulton, our VP of Product Strategy at Expedient. He's Scott, my boss, so everybody be nice to him next week. So we're going to have a wonderful conversation with Bob and Gene and Mike talking about the whole end-to-end power of multi-cloud from an industry standpoint. It's going to be a really great presentation with some really great questions lined up. So please join us next week for that. And if you've attended all 5 of these, there's some exclusive Cloud Difference swag coming your way. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. I see we have a bunch of questions
right there. I already saw a few of them. Go ahead and look at those.
Yes. I'm going to start with this first one. Do you recommend public or private cloud? Don't have to, right? The whole point is that you can use the right cloud for the right workload. If you have workloads that need a true private cloud world, whether that's for compliance reasons, data privacy reasons, your business is just not ready to let go of those workloads yet, that's okay. You can maintain that in a private cloud and then utilize public cloud for maybe public facing workloads, like your public facing website, retail sites, those sorts of things. That makes sense there. So you don't have to pick one or the other. You can utilize either one.
There is no right choice. It depends on your individual use case and your application assessments and a whole lot of variables. There is no right answer. They're all great solutions depending on what we're trying to build.
In terms of security and networking, how can one manage private cloud and public cloud? How can one instance of apps from one cloud communicate to another instance of apps on another cloud. And that's actually part of that Cloud Safer webinar that we did last week. So I recommend going and watching that. We have a lot more to come on security and networking from a multi-cloud standpoint. We have in our data centers, we're part of the Equinix Cloud Fabric. So we have our cloud on-ramps that connect to Azure, AWS, and GCP, high speed, low latency connections to make that faster and easier. You don't have to worry about the circuits or standing all that up because we already have it. But then there's also the security aspect of it. Think about things in terms of intent. What do you intend to happen? Who do you not want to get? Who do you want to get access to those things? And then block everybody else. We try to put our applications together. Part of that assessment process is to find the dependencies and put them together, right? So you don't have your retail site in one cloud and your billing system in another cloud or your payment system in another cloud. So you're constantly talking across clouds. Keep everything together that needs to be together. It just makes things simpler from a troubleshooting and operational standpoint. Do we have one API that interfaces with each of the major cloud platforms? Yes. So our platform interfaces with AWS, Azure, GCP, a number of other clouds. I can get back to, somebody also asked, do we have a list of public clouds that we support? I can get back to that person with the actual list. It is a long list, but this allows you to make API calls to this platform, which then can do the obfuscation and allow it to go out to whatever cloud you need it to go to. And it just simplifies all of that down. It also enables your developers to go faster. They write against the CMP. It goes out and takes care of everything. I just want to send deep appreciation saying I'm hoping Expedient has the comparison between Expedient Cloud and Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud so that users will make a smart decision to migrate to Expedient Cloud. We appreciate that.
I saw that question.
That's just, you know what, that's just deep appreciation. That's not even a question, it's more of a comment, and that's okay. Do we support Oracle or IBM clouds? Yes. I do know that those two are on that list. So we can do deployments to those pretty straightforward. Do you ever work with clients and the assessment you discover it makes sense to have more than one cloud? Absolutely. In fact, almost every single time it ends up being more than one cloud because it's not every cloud is the right fit for every single workload. So if I have commodity off the shelf software, things that are based on things that are written by a vendor and I install it into a Windows VM, that's not really a great fit for most of the hyperscale clouds. Our multi-cloud vision doesn't change that, right? Our Expedient Enterprise Cloud is a really, really great fit for those because we have a true VMware-based cloud that allows you to pay per instance in a resource pool fashion. It makes it much, much simpler. But that may not mean that it has to land there. It may say, hey, this Windows VM needs to go with this bigger application that was in-house written, and that would be better refactored into AWS. We can balance those and make that go where it needs to go. And we're not necessarily tied to shoving everything into our cloud because we recognize that our cloud isn't the right fit for every workload either. We want to make sure that you're landing on the right cloud, not our cloud. It's very important to do that.
It's key points.
Like configuration management, do you have patch management? We do. Actually, we offer that as a service. So you can sign up for our OS management and monitoring service, and we'll take care of your server patching for you. You can do that. We can make your life even easier, not just hosting your things, but we can take care of it for you as well. That is part of our managed services platform. So we do have the ability to do full patch management as well. I'm going to announce the winner here. Dan Wynn, I think I got his name right. Dan Wynn is the winner of the $100 Best Buy gift card. So congratulations to Dan. Is there a trial of this? Yes. So if you want to reach out to me, aj.kuftic@expedient.com. You can also go to expedient.com, click that Let's Talk link at the top of the page. And that'll give you the ability to reach out to somebody. We can help you get set up with a test drive, start with an assessment, and then take a look at this tool and how this can help you from an end-to-end standpoint. I want to thank everyone for joining us this week. This has been really, really great. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, AJ, as always.
Please, again, join us next week for our Cloud Different, Revealing the Power of Multi-Cloud with Bob Evans from Cloud Wars and Gene Torres from Zerto and Mike Fulton from Expedient. And we will see you all next week. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.